For Inside Carolina, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this is in the moment where I go through some of the most memorable moments in recent UNC history with the players that made them possible. And on the 3-year anniversary of UNC's national championship over Gonzaga, I wanted to take a look back at the closing moments of that game with the champ himself, Justin Jackson of the Dallas Mavericks. Justin, does it feel like it's already been 3 years since that title game?
Man, it does not. Actually, Kenny texted me this morning and told me it was 3 years to date. And when he said it's 3 years, I was like, for what? Like, what was 3 years ago? But no, man. I mean, it feels like it just happened yesterday. To be honest, I was, I think back all the time on, not just the memories of just the championship, but the whole run that we had. Like that was a crazy year. And one of those that you'll never forget for sure.
Speaking of crazy runs, that tournament, when you look at your run, there were a lot of games that came down to the last couple of possessions, Arkansas, Kentucky, Oregon, and then finally in the championship. How do you think those previous games helped you guys in the moment be able to close out a really good Gonzaga team?
Oh, I think it was super important. I think back to the Arkansas game, for instance. We should have lost that game for sure. But I think the way that we came together as a team in that game, I think it just kind of grew even more, game to game. And then you get to like a Kentucky game where, I mean, you really have to pull it all together and try to, beat a really good team. And you just keep on going and going. And I think we just kept growing, kind of starting from that Arkansas game.
You guys were trailing with under 2 minutes left, and your and one pushed you guys back in front for good. And I think it highlights, one of the best parts about your game, your ability to move without the ball, making good cuts. What were you seeing as that play developed?
To be honest, man, like I shot the ball so bad that game. I think I was 0 for 9 from 3. And so kind of within our offense, thankfully, like that year, coach kind of allowed us just kind of a free-flowing offense. And so for me, I knew, I was, in my mind, it was like, okay, the next 3 that I shoot is going in. But at the same time, like, let me get something going inside. Let me try to do something and get involved with something, whether it's a cut or whatever. And, thankfully, I can't even remember who passed me the ball, but, thankfully I was able to get that one. And like you said, we kind of kept building on that to end the game.
You're someone that normally doesn't show a ton of emotion on the court, but was that a little flex on that and one?
Man, I don't think I had enough muscle for it to be considered a flex. But I mean, in games like that, man, it's hard not to keep the emotions in, especially in a big play or, a big moment. It's really hard to keep them in. So even for somebody like me, like you said, that doesn't show a ton of emotions, there was a lot of it pent up that I had to let out a little bit.
A shot that I don't think gets talked about nearly enough among UNC fans is Isaiah Hicks' tough basket that pushed the lead up to 3. You made the entry pass to him. What was going through your head as he just seemed to kind of hang in the air forever there?
Man, to be honest, I think Isaiah, even if you ask Isaiah, I don't think he played, as well as he probably wanted to. But for us, we knew we had the confidence in him, and we've seen it so many times in practice and in other games and stuff like that. Just his abilities that he really has. And so for me, it was like, all right, this is normal. I'm just going to pass the ball in and, let him go to work. And I think that honestly was, if not the biggest, one for sure, top 2 biggest shots of the game. I mean, like you said, it put us up to 3, which there's a huge difference between 1 and 3. And so, that was an incredible shot. But like I said, like we've seen him do stuff like that all the time. So we weren't too shocked at it, but it was huge for us.
After that basket, Gonzaga called a timeout, completely changed the way that they could have approached that basket. Do you remember what the conversation in your huddle was like?
Honestly, it was just try to figure out whatever we possibly can to get a stop so that we can try to steal the game. I was so tired myself, and I know everybody else out there on the court was so tired. And so for us, it was just like, come on, one more stop, one more stop. That's all we need. And so, yeah, to be honest, I don't even remember the schemes or what coach said. I think it was just straight up man to man, like we always do. And obviously no threes. And so, thankfully, I think that was the next play that Kennedy got the block, right? That's the next play. So, yeah, thankfully we had two monsters in the paint. They were able to make up for, drives or whatever. So it was just trying to get one more, man.
Yeah, now that moment that you just talked about, probably the most famous moment from the game, out of the timeout, up 3, Kennedy comes up with the block. Joel passes it up to you for the fast break dunk. Can you walk us through that entire sequence through your perspective?
Man, so starting on defense, having Kennedy and Isaiah or Tony that year, having them back there, I mean, you kind of had a security blanket almost. And so thankfully, Kennedy was in the perfect spot, made a great play. And then whenever he blocked it and kicked it out or Joel got it, for me, I was just trying to get spaced. And when I saw the guy come up to try to foul Joel, I just took off, and he was able to get it up. And it's funny, a lot of guys give me a hard time because they're like, man, like if I was in that situation to seal it, I would have done some other crazy dunk. And I was so tired in that last possession that I couldn't even think. So for me, it was like, man, I just got to get this ball in the basket and, get it up 5, and so we could try to seal it. So that was, I think Kennedy, honestly, he saved us in that tournament so many times. And I think that was the perfect punctuation to the tournament run he saved us one other time, to finish it off. So, it was definitely important for sure.
When you went up 5 with less than 10 seconds left, what was the moment like for you when it went from a close game, 1-possession game to, oh, shoot, we're about to be national champions?
Dude, I dunked the ball. They came back down, I think they just threw a turnover right away. I think they tried to throw a forward pass. And then they fouled us, and I just started bawling, dude. Like, I couldn't even control it. Like, it was just I don't know what it was, man. I think it was, obviously from the year before, and then all the work that myself and the whole team put in, in the off season, and, that whole redemption type thing, man. Like we really wanted to get back there and win it. And just the fact that we were able to get back there and finish it off, it was a crazy amount of emotions that just came flowing. I think with like 10 seconds left, and I think Theo started crying too, and coach was like, come on, we got to finish the game. Like, stop crying. But it was a crazy moment, man, for sure.
Before the game, Roy told the players to think about who the first person that they would celebrate would be with. And on a podcast, Kenny told me that you promised him before the game you would celebrate first with him. To me, that's the coolest moment looking back at this game, is seeing you make a beeline to hug Kenny when the time expires. What made you choose him?
For one, he's one of my best friends. And it was also one of those things where Kenny was out there, the whole first half of the season with us, right? Going to war and putting everything he had out there. And when he got hurt, man, it was one of those things where it was like, well, dang, man, he doesn't get to experience this with us on the court. And, it was super important to me, to show that obviously how much I did love him, but also that he was a huge part of us. You know what I mean? Like, he was still, even in those suits, the terrible color coordination suits that he had over there on the sideline, like, he was still super important to us, And so it was just one of those things where I felt like that was super important. And it is pretty funny looking at the video because I get cut out at the end, but I sprint. I don't know how I had enough energy, to be honest. I don't know how I
emptied the tank.
Yeah, that was it. I was running on fumes. But no, that was a big moment.
As an athlete growing up, it's easy to kind of take for granted the roles that our parents play, sacrificing weekends for AAU trips, buying us all this gear and equipment. What was it like for you to go up in the stands after the game and celebrate the biggest basketball achievement that you've ever accomplished with them?
Uh, it was pretty amazing. Like you said, like my parents, I mean, we were playing in tournaments all week, every weekend in the summer, traveling all the time. Like the amount of money, the amount of time that they spent on me and obviously my siblings now. But for me, it was unbelievable, you know. And I think we take it for granted as kids growing up because it's just, oh, we're going to another basketball tournament. You know, we don't think about all the other things. We could just be chilling at home. You know, my parents, I'm sure a lot of those weekends just wanted to be at home. But, you know, to be able to see all of that come together and us to accomplish, I mean, at the end of the day, outside of an NBA championship, for us to accomplish the biggest thing in basketball, you know, for them to be there and for me to be able to go up there and hug them and, you know, celebrate with them was pretty cool for sure.
As a team, for what you guys went through for 2 years leading up to that final moment, how will you remember the 2017 team?
Oh man, dude, there's not one. I can't really say one statement as to how I'll remember us. Um, the amount of different personalities and characters that we had on the team, um, the way that the coaching staff, you know, really just shifted to basically just trusting us and going out there and playing basketball. To the way that, you know, I think everybody took. I think the biggest praise I could possibly give to that team was how important they took that off season after we lost to Villanova. I mean, everybody looked at it as a job to get back to the Final Four. And obviously it showed. You know, I look at it as I was 0 for 9 from the 3-point line, and we still really didn't skip a beat. You know, like it was still – Joel was still playing well. Kennedy was playing well. Like you said, Isaiah hit that huge shot. Tony came in and gave us good minutes. Theo obviously does everything that he did for us. And everybody else that came into the game, it was like everybody just stepped right in. And, you know, I think that right there, we really were a family, you know, from the standpoint of, man, when one guy's down, the next guy comes in, picks him up, and does his own thing as well. So, you know, that was we have relationships from that team that will last for a really, really long time.
All right, Justin, thank you for taking the time to hop on here to relive the 2017 title game. I had Luke May last week, you this week. I just keep raising the bar over here.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, bro.